How was your Christmas, man?
It was a great Christmas. We there were some funny moments, which you always gotta love. How was your Christmas?
It's pretty much the same every year. You get a couple we're a little older now, so we don't really get much, but
Yeah.
I got a nice Kamavinga jersey, so I'm pretty happy about that. Because I've wanted one for a couple years now. Oh, is that the New Jersey?
Yes, sir.
That one
Basuma.
looks much better in person. It looks much better in person than
Yeah.
because I remember texting that one time like, God, these kids are ugly for Tottenham. It looks much better in person though.
Yeah, it
Which is
does.
always good. Sometimes the TV doesn't always do jerseys justice. As I rock
True.
my Dortmund jersey today, with our 2 stars. Even though I'm not really a Dortmund fan, I'll say us though. I do fuck with Dortmund though, heavy.
Yeah.
We've actually already had some really great games this morning, a couple upsets already. Not going to get too much into it, but all the other leagues go on break for Christmas except for the EPL and Serie A. Um, so we'll talk about those games. We'll have some more ESL talk. And, to start things off, Sir Jim Radcliffe gets not approved, but takes a 25% stake of Man United. This is going to be a 6 to 8 week window for it to be confirmed, so we're looking February. So United's going to miss out on the transfer window in January. So we have talked about, I don't know if we talked about on here, but he's talked to other managers like Julian Lopetegui, Graham Potter. So, Eric Ten Hag has to be feeling pretty uncomfortable in the hot seat right now of Man United. And they play Villa today at 3. And, I'm not saying that game's going to make or break it, but it can definitely help or hurt him. How does Jim Radcliffe affect United, in your opinion, presently and in the future?
Well, I think we're gonna see. It's weird, right? Because United have never been afraid to spend money, but I think they'll be a bit smarter with the money that they'll spend. 25% means this guy's gonna have a huge, huge influence on the club. Um,
The
I'm not
Glazers
gonna.
already said that he's gonna run the football. And like the Glazers are already saying we're taking a step back, he can do it.
Yeah.
And he runs Nice currently. Like his group runs
Yeah.
Nice, which they're doing pretty well in Ligue 1. So
Yeah, no, they're Nice are a rising team in France. They're sort of punching with the Marseilles and the Lyons nowadays, and that's got to be exciting for United fans. Nice have had some really good players come through over the past few years. Todibo's there right now, so he knows how to put people in places. At least we think, but everything changes when you get to United, man. Like the fans the fans have every right to be as powerful as they are, but they're super powerful and they're very demanding. Um, it is interesting that they're missing out on January. I wonder if there's some backroom stuff and he'll still be able to pull some strings. Um, I'm not sure. I think you got to get rid of Eric Ten Hag at this point for any improvements to be made. So, I, in that way, Ratcliffe can probably only do so much in my eyes.
yeah, and part of the issue is that they're kind of digging themselves out of a pit at this point.
Yeah.
They spent a lot of money on a lot of people probably Jim Radcliffe wouldn't have spent money on. And part of the problem is that Eric Ten Hag, like the players, have too much power there. They should have a sport like in today's day and age, a club like Man United needs a sporting director, right? Like
Yeah.
there are very few clubs that don't need sporting directors. And the clubs that don't, like a Real Madrid, um, it's because they can pretty much get whoever they want. You know what I mean? Like they just kind of trust their scouts and like Jimmy Calvin's like, hey, go get Vinicius, and they're just kind of like, all right, sure, here's 45 mil. Um,
Yep.
but he was very hard on I want Anthony. They go spend like 70 on Anthony, and that looks like probably the worst signing in Premier League history at this point. Um,
Yeah.
it doesn't look good for him. Guys just kind of shut down his inside, and then he's got to go to the outside, and he's a very one-footed player. Um, which so are a lot of left-footed players like Robin and Gareth Bale, but they also do a lot better job at creating space for themselves. And that's neither here nor there, just making a point that you can be one-footed and still be okay. But Anthony is not Robin or Bale.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
But all that being said, I just think, would you clean house with the players first, or would you clean house with the manager first, or would you do both simultaneously?
Well, so it seems as if Ratcliffe is sort of. It says here, a Guardian article. He's cutting 300 jobs,
Yeah,
trying to
which is
streamline the
good.
club.
It's
Yes.
good, and I will just say, I was listening to Gab and Jules, and I think United have like 400 more employees than any other top club in England. Not
Yeah.
including Man City, because in the Man City group, we don't really know. But I think like Liverpool has like 700, and they have like 1,200. So they're cutting it down to 900.
Right. And there's so many probably like bureaucratic things there, and then stuff dedicated to like, all right, you scored an important goal for us once, you get a job. I know United does a lot of that type of stuff, which I can respect to some degree, but when when it's gone this way, yeah, 300 jobs going away, that's fine in my eyes. Obviously you feel for those people, but they'll be fine.
You hope.
Yeah, you would hope. Um, I don't think
They've
that they're
also
going to
taken
clean.
economic loss the last 2 seasons too. Like
They have.
United has taken an economic loss the last 2 years, which is really bad for a like billions of dollars corporation.
Right. And another article here, Reuters, their shares are rising. So, obviously, investors are liking this
They
Ratcliffe
like this
idea.
move, yeah.
Yeah. Um, I don't think that they will clean house the players. I think they will do managers first, managerial staff, just because they have a pretty thin squad. Like they're relying on guys like Kobe Mainu now. Garnacho's fully first team nowadays. They started though, I'm forgetting his name, but they started a youth center
The
back,
center back, yeah, I saw that.
and
I
he,
wrote it in the notes if you want to look. I don't want to even try to say his name though.
let's see here,
It's like something
Kambwala,
with a K.
yeah,
Yeah.
and he did fine. It's whatever, and I like to see youth prospects come up, but for a team like United, when you're playing West Ham away, that's not the prettiest
That's
look.
not what you
So
want. You'd rather it be at home against a Luton town.
right, exactly, and so that's sort of my reasoning for. They just have a thin squad. I would expect that they try and sort of beefing up the squad first with some rotational players, things like this. Sabitzer a few years ago, signings like
Donny
that.
van de Beek's already out the window. They already
Yeah,
pushed on. He's on his way to Frankfurt. That's a guy that I believe he was like 20th in the Ballon d'Or that year that they bought him. Don't
yeah,
quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure he made the short list either way. That being said, it kind of was a down year talent-wise, if I remember correctly. I think it was like 2019, 2018, 2019. It was a
it
pretty
was.
down year. He was linked with Real Madrid, and Zidane put a stop to that, maybe rightfully so from what we've seen. But this is a guy that thrived under Erik ten Hag for many years at Ajax, and now he's in the Prem and he's not really thriving. Maybe a mid-table club in the top 5 leagues is much better for him as a player, and we don't need to get into that. But also, a reason to beef up the squad and then sell is that teams know you're not desperate, and that's kind of a big deal for teams to know you're not desperate. Like, if Real Madrid go into the market for a center back, we know we're going to get shafted because everyone knows we need a center back because we only have two right now. We're
Right.
only going to have two for the rest of the year, so maybe that's a reason why I would probably try to do both together. I'd probably get the manager in first, but I would go and get like a young manager that actually has a track record. And I know Ten Hag does have a track record, and he did a good job at Ajax. But I want to see a manager that has built something himself, not something that the youth team, like I don't really that the club built.
Right.
Like we'll get into it. Bournemouth, they go get Donny Areola from Rayo Vallecano, and they're flying high with another win today. That's someone that I think, they're pushing. Bournemouth is hitting well above their weight right now because of the manager. Um, Aston Villa is another one hitting well above their weight because of the manager. Um, so, and I'm not saying that United, let's just keep it quite frank here. United need a top class manager. They need to go get a world class manager and give them the keys to the kingdom. I don't care if you go get Julian Nagelsmann. I don't care if you go get Hansi Flick. Don't go get Julian Lopetegui. Don't go, Mourinho. You can go get Mourinho, but the one thing with Mourinho is he's not going to build for the future. He's going to build for now. You want a manager that is going to build for the future and for now.
Right.
I would say go get a Zinedine Zidane, but I doubt he says yes to this kind of job. So my eyes would be right on Hansi Flick. Give him whatever money he wants, and I'm not saying give him the keys to the kingdom, but tell him, look, we're not going to push you. We know this is a project. So we believe in you, and it's something that Chelsea would have done a lot better if they didn't go sign Graham Potter before Pochettino. Like if they got Pochettino right away and was like, look, we're not going to push you. Like we want to see results, right? Like we want Champions League. But if we can physically see it with our eyes, we're gonna be pretty happy about the product. We don't expect you to win every game. We don't expect you to win titles.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I think Ten Hag really went wrong. Is he's like, we're ready to compete with Man City and Liverpool, and everybody except for United fans knew that they weren't, and they still aren't. And they're, like Arsenal, how they did it right with Arteta, man. Like, they let Arteta build his squad, They go and get the Odegaards. They go and, they get the Martinellis. They, and then, they add a Ben White for 50 million. And, they have Saliba and they have Gabriel and, and then they go spend 100 million on Declan Rice. To me, that's what United should be trying to do.
Right.
And, Arteta is a good example of a coach that, like, it's not always great, but at least you can see it. Like you can physically see it. Oh, that's what he's trying to do. And Ten Hag, a big knock on him is I think he's bad with the media, which in
Absolutely.
turn makes it look really bad with the club when someone Arteta is good with the media. Jurgen Klopp is a fucking crybaby, but he's great with the media. Liverpool's another example. They gave Klopp the keys to the kingdom. They're like, yo, Jurgen, that time. And Jurgen turned it around within 2 seasons. So, and that's why I expect Pochettino to turn around at Chelsea within 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. I agree with you. Like, United aren't ready to sort of buy these really expensive players and expect, all right, we're only 1 to 2 pieces off. They're not there yet. They need to build into it like Arsenal did, like Liverpool did, a few years ago, probably almost 10 years ago now, which is pretty crazy.
And they're still kicking, though. That's the thing. And
Yes.
because of Klopp's ideas, they're still successful. And this is not the same squad that we saw win a Champions League 5
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah.
So,
It's not.
there's still pieces there, but, it's had a lot of turnover. And that's the important thing is that when you have turnover, you're replacing. And, let's be honest, this Liverpool side hasn't gotten all their signings right. They've actually gotten a lot of signings wrong, and they're still there. So, and that's why the sporting director is so important. And bring in a sporting director first and then bring in the coach.
Yeah.
Because you want the sporting director and the coach to be on the same page. Or you bring in Hansi Flick and then you bring someone that Hansi Flick is like, I like this guy.
Yeah.
If that's the kind of thing that you are going to do, let's have everybody on the same page.
Right. And, they tried to, well, it was last year where they brought in this guy from Red Bull who, was credited for a lot of
Rangnick.
what, yeah, Ragnick. And there was a total
They should have
failure.
kept. They should have kept.
I think it was a failure, man.
I
mean,
think it was a failure because they refused to accept him. You know what I mean? A lot of things that he said are now turning out to be correct. He's like, these players aren't good enough. We have to clean house. Everyone's like, no, it's you. And now Ten Hag's saying the same thing. And, now it's because it's Ten Hag and they all like Ten Hag. It's all like, oh, okay. Rangnick was right. Mourinho was right. Because Mourinho said the same thing too. But Rangnick shouldn't have been coaching. He should have been up in the box making the decisions. That's the one difference. But Rangnick's he's like kind of like a godfather of football to like the Klopps and the Hansi Flicks,
yeah,
the German and the Tuchels. So like these guys that are super successful in the Prem, like Klopp and Tuchel, he was a teacher to them. So like, like I get the thought process there, but with a guy like that, he's very hard headed, and you kind of have to. He's German. He's
Yeah.
German. Like you got to just let him do his thing.
Yeah.
But moving on, just some more ESL stuff. Obviously we've done more. I've done more research. I don't know about you, and more information has come out since we last talked about it. So what they're talking about is three divisions: the Star, the Gold, and the Blue. Two teams get relegated from the Star and the Gold. So from the Star they go to the Gold. From the Gold they go to the Blue. You have 16 teams in the Star and the Gold. 20 teams in the Blue, which are forever rotating. I'm not sure what that quite means, because like if I was really good in the Blue last year, but I didn't get relegated, do I get to stay in the Blue? Two teams relegated from Star to Gold. I already said that. So right now you have two groups of 8. They'll play 7 games home and away, so 14 games total. And their reasoning for this is like, and I saw someone tweet about this today. It's like, look at Newcastle. They got out of the Champions League. They're not going to get top 4 again. Maybe being in the Blue would have been better for them. It would have been more their speed. Same thing with Girona, which is, well, if Girona gets first, they go straight to UCL, but maybe it's better for them to go to Blue, but why would it be better for them to go to Blue? If there's more money in the UCL, why would they even say, okay, I want to go to Blue? So in that sense, you need more money in the Blue than the UCL. And Reinhardt, the CEO, says it's more sustainable for them to go to Blue because then they can build long term. Instead of being in the competition for one, getting knocked out immediately, and then not being able to stay there. And it'd be good for building a brand long term and staying in the competition for a long time. Do you have any thoughts on anything that I just said about the format?
No, I actually see where Reinhardt's coming from with the the Gironas and the Newcastles of the world. Newcastle, obviously that's an asterisk because of the public investment fund,
Injuries.
but
Well, and the injuries to them too didn't help, but that's
yeah,
a part of the season.
yeah.
Welcome to playing a long schedule with a lot of games.
But I agree with it, and that's what they try to do with like the conference league, but you're not gonna finish lower in your domestic league so that you can go to the conference league and expect to go further than Europa or UCL. So I'm not sure Girona would get into Blue this season. If they finish first,
Yeah.
is what they're saying.
Yeah.
Is this because of history, or like what's sort of like the equation behind it?
So the equation behind it is stars. Star is kind of like the historical clubs, and gold is kind of like also more historical to start. This is just to start. Then blue will be, the up and coming teams, and so like Girona, because they get first in La Liga and they're showing some spunk and they're playing well, they get invited to blue, and then at that point it's their job to make sure they stay. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um, I think that's the thought process, though. This is completely different than the format we saw the first time around. So, I do like that they're making improvements to the format.
yeah. And I also think back to like when Leicester won the Prem and then they
Yes,
went to the round of 16 or even quarterfinals of the UCL. But long term, that didn't really work out for them as
it
they're
didn't help
now.
them at all.
Yeah,
They're literally playing in the championship. They play Ipswich today.
yeah.
Um,
So I don't know.
so maybe it would help them, and so some of the rules FFP applies. So Man City, PSG are not invited. So you expect that to be also shown to Newcastle, but maybe not if Newcastle shows that they've been a part of FFP. The clubs will run the competition instead of UEFA, and all the money goes to the clubs. Currently, teams only get about roughly 20% of the money that they generate. So, like, all the teams together, all 60 whatever teams, because we got 32 in conference is 32 too as well, isn't it? So 96 teams, all 96 teams share about 20% of the money. That's pretty messed up when you think about it.
Yeah,
And even more so beyond that, I don't know if you saw, but right now they're saying games will be free for anyone. So that's
yeah,
really cool as well. And if you wanted, you could pay $10. They're saying there's a $10 a month where you can get like tactical angles and like 5 different cameras you can watch during the game, and you can get it in different languages if you pay €10 a month. And the €20 a month is a little bit beyond that. So they're coming up with good ideas, and um, yeah, I mean that kind of stuff. That's good for the game because they talk a lot about how you got to pay $80 a month to watch just your favorite to watch Tottenham play, because sometimes they're on Peacock, sometimes they're on NBC, sometimes they're on ESPN, and they're always on something different. And then you have Paramount for Champions League if they were in Champions League. So yeah, and all that money will go directly to the clubs, which is a big deal.
Yeah, no, it's
No,
something
go.
we touched on it last episode with the free TV for viewers. And we don't know how long that would really go on, if they're going to slam the door on it after 1 season, 2 seasons, and so on.
I don't
But
see why they would.
yeah, and
Like they're trying to build a brand more than anything, and pissing off your clientele is not they realize that they can make more money through advertisements anyway.
yeah,
And when you think about it, like if they start getting 100% of the money instead of 20%, that extra TV deal that they need, and so it's through like Unify or whatever, and Unify is the one that's offering the free. So we would be talking I would think at least a number of years. And something to think about is now we'll get into that. Never mind. We'll get into it next on the next bullet points.
all right. So
All right. Yeah.
we here it's why would teams leave? I'm assuming you mean UCL.
Yes.
The current situation. And like we just talked about, there's more money with the Super League. UEFA is corrupt. I wanted to pick your brain about lesser of two evils. Is this just because of sort of how it's a bit more virtuous, if you want to use that word, when it comes
Well,
to revenue sharing, etc.?
obviously I'm going to be super biased because my club is the one that is pushing it so hard, and my
Yeah.
club is the inventors, but we know how much corruption is going on currently with UEFA. They pretty much have Qatar in their back pocket. Um, you know, Al Khalifi can get his little power rush and throw his little tantrums and run down and assault Real Madrid employees and go and you'll probably know a better word for this than me, and try to not torment.
Coerce.
Yes, the referees at the end of the game, and try to big dick them in a way. And he got no fines. There was nothing done to him at all. And that's what I mean by the lesser of two evils. And also, we see PSG and City literally get away with murder constantly, and I think a lot of the clubs are really tired of it. And I don't know how you feel about that stuff, or if you even care. I'm sure you do, because most football fans do. But that's what I mean by the lesser of two evils, is that
Yeah.
they tried to do this whole power rush. Like, I don't know if you remember, but they were like, if you play in the Super League, you can't play for your national team. If you play in the Super League, you're banned from the World Cup. If if you play in the Super League, like, you can't play in the Champions League ever again. And it's just kind of like, you showed, like, you took off your mask and you showed who you really were.
Right. Yeah. And
And that's what I
those.
mean by the lesser of two evils
Yeah.
when I
I
wrote
get it.
that.
Those types of threats to players even show how much UEFA is scared of something like the Super League. They want to keep the status quo,
They want
obviously.
to keep
And I always,
lining their pockets. That's the
yeah.
big thing. They
And
get
the
paid
more
to do nothing.
exactly. And the more we talk about it, the more I sort of like the idea of the status quo getting overrun, which you probably know why. Like I like sort
I'm the
of,
same way.
yeah, yeah.
And
So
no, go. I was
no,
just
it's just, even if it fails, even if the Super League fails, at least they tried to improve the situation for the game.
well,
You
and there
know?
are a lot of very smarter people than you and I like Sidlow, Gab Marcotti, they think that eventually UEFA is going to bend their knee to the big clubs and this whole thing's going to go away. But I don't know why it would go away. Like
Hmm.
they've already pushed it this far. Like they're almost there. Like they're almost at the finish line. Why would they just be like, okay, yep, here are our demands. We're good to go. And I don't see Real Madrid and Barcelona specifically fucking over the small teams, the historic teams that have been pushed to the sides because they play in a small country like Anderlecht. Who just get their guys picked off from them anytime they're decent. And then, they might win a game in the Champions League. They might go to the Champions League every 10 years when, a very long time ago, there was a lot of teams that were winning Champions Leagues that aren't now. And, unfortunately, football is kind of too far gone from where we were before.
I mean, yeah.
And it's really sad. But, another reason teams might leave is that, most of these teams aren't really turning a profit. They're not really making money. They're actually losing money. And like the Italian teams, for example, they're failing big time, man. Like they just get their guys picked off from them constantly. Like Zaniola, who is a little bit of a flop since his ACL, but ideally we would love to see him at Juventus or a Roma or a Napoli or a Milano. Instead of flying straight in the EPL because he's Italian, Donnarumma. We'd rather see him with a big Italian club, and I know he's with AC Milan. But he's with PSG, and we want to see these guys kind of stay in their nation, and we want to see, we don't want to see Bayern win the Bundesliga every year. We don't want to see Juventus win the Serie A every year. Like we don't want to see City win the Prem every year. And also these teams really need to do something to compete with the Premier League because the Premier League has so much power.
Oh yeah.
And as you see, I put right here. I think kind of like the Italian, the Spanish, the Portuguese, and like the Belgium, and theyese teams will be all for it because they're trying to do anything to get in there. And then I think the Prem, France, because of PSG, has a lot of power there. I think Germany, because they're 50+1, will probably stay. And then now we're going to have two competitions that aren't hosting the best teams, so to speak.
Yeah, because of the fracture.
I do think the German teams would probably be the first ones to leave
Fair.
the UCL in that context because you just need to convince the German teams that it's not bad.
Yeah.
And then their fans will probably go for it. The Prem will be a little bit harder because of the backlash they got last time. But Reinhardt did say, as you see right here, that a Prem team reached out to him and was like, we're going to put out a public statement saying we're against it, but we're in. We can kind of guess who that is. I have an idea of who that probably is.
Who do you think it is?
I'm thinking it's a team that's not usually a top 4 team, like a Chelsea or a Man United, and would love to still compete in these competitions.
Yeah. No, I get it.
Maybe a Tottenham.
Yeah.
That's something Levy would probably be into.
Yes, he would.
And like I said, because of the 50+1 rule, I actually think this would do a lot of good for German side. The Germans are kind of traditionalists in a lot of ways, as much as Europe are. Kind of like the Prem as well. While all these other leagues are realizing they got to start thinking outside the box.
I mean, most definitely. When you see teams like Lyon almost get relegated, I mean, they're still in that battle. They've got to change.
They need something. They need help, man. These clubs need help. They're sinking ships.
Yeah, like you see the ultras just go absolutely nuts on the players, and I don't blame them. Although it's not the players' fault per se. Yeah, there needs to be some changes because the way it's going is I just see this as a very similar landscape to college football. I know I mentioned that a little bit before, but it's like you have bigger brands now. Michigan, Alabama, Ohio State challenging the NCAA because they realize that's where the power is. It's with the big brands and the teams and the players.
The
They're the ones
organization
pulling
is
in the
nothing
money.
without them. They're nothing
Exactly.
without them.
And that's what clubs are realizing right now with the Champions League, is that you think people are gonna watch if you have to pull from like Wolves or fucking I don't know Stade Rennais because the other teams have gone and joined the Super League. You know what I mean? The
Yeah,
powers with these
that they
teams.
can watch for free, by the way.
Yeah, so
That's why the free thing is such a big deal. It's like, huh. So you're telling me I can pay to watch Bayern versus Lyon or whatever, like a mid-table, or let's just say I can pay to watch Bayern versus Union Berlin, or in this new one with the 16 teams, we have more condensed top teams in a group. So, or I can see El Clasico 6 times a year, and I can see it twice a year without playing. Or I can see, uh, let's just say Manchester United's in it. Oh, I can see Real play Manchester United twice a year. Dude, hell, like I want to see that. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
it just makes it really, easy. Um,
definitely.
And I know I have right here changes I would make, right? Um, I actually want to see that star group get a little bigger. I like the number of 32, and also I like the 8-team group. Um, so I would go 4 groups of 8 instead of 2 groups of 8. I know you're kind of watering it down a little bit, but here's where the difference comes in: the top 4 of each advance, and instead of playing directly the team, like one plays 8, one plays 8. You now have that draw, which people love the draw. Do you like the Champions League draw? Because I love the Champions League draw.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
you now have that draw. One, top 4 from each advance, and one can play any of the 3 from the other ones. So now you have that draw. Like, oh, here we go. Oh, we can either get, Leipzig, Copenhagen, or Union Berlin from our 3. Oh man,
Yeah,
I really want Union. Um, and I don't really like. I think the 2 relegated and the 2 promoted's a little small. Um, I think actually if we did the 32, I think 8 relegated, 8 promoted would be much better. Um,
yeah,
because someone, a team like Man United, just for example, I don't want to keep harping on them, but they're just someone that comes to mind that is probably really interested in the Super League. Um, they can just kind of sit there and be like, oh, as long as we don't get last, we're not getting relegated, and just keep racking up that money and racking up that money and that's I think that's kind of unfair.
yeah. No, it is, and that's a big problem of what we've seen in domestic leagues, but also even international competitions, where it's like the last group stage game, and you have teams that are just sitting back because they know the job's done. You want
Yeah.
to create a situation where you're going down to the final wire as much as possible. It's the best for the game, for the product. Yeah, I agree with you. More relegation promotion would probably be a bit better, and that's a major critique of the new World Cup format, right? With the 3 groups, because you don't have every single group team playing on the last day now.
Hmm.
We're moving to 48 teams, and
Yeah.
some teams are going to know where they're at, and that happens right now for sure, but it's going to become more frequent now with the expansion. And that was one of the major critiques because, this past World Cup, it was Japan and Costa Rica were going through over Spain and Germany at one point, and it was absolutely wild. That's the things I like to see, at least, and I'm sure
Yeah,
a
it
lot of
was it was
other
great for
fans.
entertainment. It was really
Yeah,
great for entertainment purposes.
yeah. So I agree.
So enough with ESL talk. I was gonna say UCL talk. Well, I guess it was technically UCL talk as well. Man
Yeah.
City Club World Cup champions. What's that? Their 5th trophy in 2023.
Hmm.
Man City beat Fluminense 4-0. No KDB, no Holland, no problem. Any thoughts on the game?
Not the match itself. You obviously expect City to win, but the Fluminense manager, Diniz, I personally think is one of the most exciting in the world. But we talked a little bit before this. He's managing Fluminense and Brazil right now. Who knows how long he'll be with the Brazil national team? But Guardiola was left very impressed. There's tons of content online. I was trying to write down specifics, but just technical difficulties. Not only is he impressed with Diniz, multitasking, but he's impressed tactically. He's impressed with his sort of mix of the young players like Marcel, or older players like Marcelo, with younger players. So definitely one to keep your eye on. And a lot of these managers in South America don't come to Europe quite often. So that's one to watch.
Yeah, and just the point. A lot of people were talking about their build-up phase, and I think Pep was as well. Um, Not a knock, just an observation. It's real easy for your build-up phase to look good when you got 8 guys in your defensive third trying to build up
Yeah,
all on top of the box. When
yeah.
City are only pressing with 5 guys. But um, maybe that's the way of the future. I don't know.
Well,
Um,
just to talk about that real quick, it's what he's doing is a bit more. It's a much different than positionalism. It's sort of this
yeah,
idea of relationism. I've heard it be called, which it sounds like you're bringing in like philosophical concepts, but anyways, it's more contextual, more present oriented in the sense of like, okay, if you were building up from the back, drop down, fucking help your teammates. Or if you're a right winger and you notice, okay, I have a guy coming down the left wing, I'm gonna get into the box now. I'm not gonna pretend that like me being an inside forward here is the most important thing and holding the
yeah.
space. No, I'm just gonna go for it. And so it's an exciting brand is really all I'm trying to say.
And we don't need to get into relationism versus positionalism, but it's a big hot topic right now. And
Yeah,
relationism is more so very prominent in the South American game, while positionalism is really prominent in the European game. And there's really only one relationist side in Europe right now. And that's the
Madrid.
Real Madrid team, which really doesn't have much structure to it. And it's kind of been that way for a long time, where you just kind of let the players, use their individual brilliance. Um, you know, and when you kind of get the positionalism in there, you kind of give direct tasks, and that's not beneficial for a player, just for example, like a Vinicius.
No.
So, but good on Man City. It
Yeah,
was their cup to lose. Just another
for
trophy
sure.
to add to the cabinet, and they keep growing that history. Are they the biggest team in Manchester now?
You would have to say so, right? I
I
mean,
would think so. Don't tell a United fan, but I mean, they've won every trophy. They've got a treble under their belt now.
it's a quintuple. I
Yeah,
Pep has changed the nature of the Manchester Derby now. I obviously didn't see it too much. Man, you beating up on City every time, but it's just funny to see like Sir Alex Ferguson quotes where he's saying, I'll never see City become better than United in my
yeah.
lifetime, and it's definitely a reality now. Um,
Darwin
so
Nunez scored. Liverpool's up 1-0.
oh,
Um,
nice.
Now to La Liga, they had one game to make up after they had feared that Madrid was going to flood. As I don't know if you know, but it really never rains in Madrid. Um,
Mm.
Atletico beat Sevilla 1-0. They both had strong sides before the Christmas break. It was a .93 to a .32 xG. So, a 1-0 seems like a fair result. Atleti kind of dominated the first half, and then Sevilla dominated the second half. Clear red, went to VAR, right call.
Yes.
But taking the headlines for the match, Rodrigo de Paul's hair, man. What was up with that?
Yeah, it's I respect the boldness, but I don't think he's pulling it off. It just doesn't work for me.
No, not for me either. But Atletico come out
Yeah.
with 3 points, and they end up jumping Barcelona. So the top four going into Christmas break in La Liga is Real Madrid, Girona, Atleti, and Barcelona.
Mm.
Did you think before the year that Barcelona would be in fourth by the halfway point?
Definitely not. You would have thought they were going to be in the top three at least, and Girona's kind of broken that up. The summer window for them wasn't that good. Um, they signed Vitor Roque, who's now coming in now.
Yeah.
Um, but no, I wouldn't have expected them to be in fourth. How about yourself?
Um, I thought they were going to have a dip, or
Yeah.
they weren't going to be as good as last year. I mean, they were champions last year, but I think they've fallen off much more than I could have ever thought they were going to fall off.
Yeah.
Um, and part of that is because Lewandowski's form is quite poor right now. Um, but moving to the EPL, which does not get a Christmas break, unfortunately, which I actually think hurts the Premier League teams. But No City game because they were busy playing. I don't even know where the game was, but they were busy playing Fluminense. And the big game of the weekend, Liverpool Arsenal, tie 1-1, and yet another boring Premier League game among your two European giants.
Yeah, I I think I disagree with you a little bit. It wasn't entertaining per se because it was very messy. Um,
Very messy.
but I kind of like that. It reminded me of when Liverpool and City would have these big matches, 2 or 3 years ago. And the tensions are so high. Obviously the tilt was pretty much even, and that's what as I said, these past Liverpool City matches were like. So it reminded me a lot of that. Um,
I guess my issue with it is they're not even creating chances, though. You know what I
sure,
mean?
yeah,
Like, you can go back and forth. It essentially was a basketball game where they just continuously shoot threes and just don't make them.
yeah, that's a
You know what I
fair,
mean?
yeah,
And that's kind of boring for me as someone that likes the Bundesliga and someone that, prefers the technical. I grew up in La Liga, man. It's the most technical league in the world, so I prefer a more technical side instead of a messy game, like you said. I think the messiness was a great way to put it. But an XG of 1.04 to 0.66 among a team that is a UCL favorite. By favorite, I just mean like a top five in Europa League favorite, and a team that two teams that are fighting for the Prem. It just you expect more. That's all. That's where I'm coming from.
yeah, and that's fair. Um,
And Trent misses that huge chance from Salah. That should have won them the game right there.
it should have, and Liverpool did look the better team for the most part.
I thought so too.
Arsenal, when Saka's not on fire, they're in trouble offensively. Um, I also I don't know what's wrong with them. Obviously they're in first, but it just hasn't been as good as last season in my eyes. They
Are
haven't
we talking
had
about
the
Arsenal
yeah,
or
yeah.
okay?
They haven't had like the Gabriel Jesus red hot form from the beginning of last season. They're definitely missing a striker. I I don't
You
know.
got to
I'm
add
not
a nine. You got to add a nine at the end of the day.
yeah,
Kind of Liverpool's woes as well. They're heavily relying on Mohamed Salah.
yeah,
I mean, Darwiz is really good in a lot of aspects, but finishing is not one of them. He's either really good or really cold. There's no in between.
right.
Moving on, West Ham beat United. United dropped points, and actually, the game was again pretty even, despite the field tilt being heavily not United's favor, but that's probably because of the way West Ham decided to play.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
the XG was in West Ham's favor, but the XT was in United's favor, both only marginally. But Garnacho continues to be the best player for Man United, and you can't expect Garnacho to score 3 goals to win 3-2. I don't even think you expect Son to score 3 goals to win 3-2.
No, absolutely not. Um, and you have here it's a cruel game. I would agree with you. A draw could have been a fair result. United are just lacking a striker, like we just said. Hoyland is not the answer. I was happy to see
At least
Rashford
not
come on.
right now.
Yeah. If he's still finding his feet in the Prem, sure, fair enough. Um, but no, West Ham, they did this classic West Ham counterattack. We'll take our chances. And Mohamed Kudus is one of the best players in the league. I was very jealous of West Ham bringing him in this past summer. It's a great signing.
He was from the
Uh,
Eredivisie, right?
yes, and obviously that's a bit risky, but I would I would be inclined to say Kudus missing is one of the big reasons Ajax is struggling so much right now. Um, not to drag Ajax into it, but it's kind of a pertinent topic when you talk about United and a
I
former player
mean,
scoring on
I
them.
was gonna say they love Ten Hag loves these Eredivisie players, so you know.
Yeah,
Um, even and I put here, it's a cruel game, man. Like, it was hard to like. I'm not even a United fan, but like that Jared Bowen bounce he got for the goal, man. You're just like, yeah, like
yep,
I'm all for United's downfall as long as they stay up. Just because I don't really like the way that they've treated a lot of their players, especially
Definitely.
Ten Hag.
Yeah.
And that being said, though, it's just I kind of actually feel bad for them a little bit. Not a lot, just a little bit, because it's just been a fall for a good 10 years now, and
Yeah.
it's usually guys bounce back, but they haven't at all.
They have not. And, Ten Hag mentioned in his post-game presser how they dominated for 72 minutes. And like you wrote down here, it was a lapse of 5 minutes and West Ham win the game. So, from that standpoint, you do feel bad for them, but you have to finish your chances. And this has just been the story all season for the most part. Obviously they've had a few games where they score some goals. But if it's Rashford finding a hot streak again, I don't know. We'll see what they do in January, now that we're a few days away.
Rashford's clearly done something to push him on the outskirts of this team. I don't know what it is, but I mean, I know Garnacho's kind of been the better player, but still,
Yeah.
there's some, Rashford's on heavy wages. He's usually not a player that's going to be pushed to the edges of the squad.
Yeah. I mean, it's happened with Sancho and Varane, so who knows?
Was he, I saw he didn't make the squad. Was he injured or did he just not make the squad? Do you know?
I don't want to
I don't
say for
follow
certain.
United that,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. So moving on, Tottenham beat Everton 2-1, but Everton's, as I've been calling it, the fuck you form, pretty much continued. Everton very unlucky. 1.69 to 2.42 xg, 1.24 to 1.5 xt, and the field hit 32 to 62, all in Everton's favor. Yet Tottenham come away with the 2 points. It's got to be the better quality, right?
I would say so. If Everton had players like Kulusevski and Son in attack, they would have scored some more goals. Andre Gomez had a really good game, by the way, and it was his first start of the year for
That's a
Everton.
name I haven't heard in a long time.
Yeah, he was dominant. Vicario also big reason why we escaped with 3 points. He made some incredible saves, and I'm ready to say he's one of the top goalies in the Premier League for sure, like without a doubt. So yeah, the quality for sure, because Pickford isn't as good as
He's
Vicario,
Pickford.
I'd say.
No, I mean
Yeah,
he's
he had
Pickford.
some
He's not
very
good
sketchy
anyway.
moments.
Yet still gets into the English national team.
I know it's a travesty. No, you're exactly right. The fuck you form continues. We deserve to lose at home.
They play City tomorrow. You think they take points off City?
Is it at Goodison Park?
It is. I actually think they take points off City. It's a hot take. We'll see. We'll
I
see in the
mean,
coming days, but
yeah,
that's my hot take. I think Everton actually take points off City. All the top teams have been dropping points though, so City. I know we talked about this a couple episodes ago. Is this the year City could go trophyless? Well, this is now City could go. City beat Everton. They're going to be on the up and up, and they have a game in hand. So
yeah,
against Brentford, so they mismatched day 18. I want you to talk a little bit of the Pochettino God, postecoglou tactical shift on Ben Davies, who, according to a lot of advanced metrics, was actually the best player on the pitch.
yeah. And you're watching the game, and I forget who the color commentator was, but he was like, Ben Davies is having a great game, and he started, kind of going on a tangent about how he thinks Ben Davies is super underrated.
He
This is
is. He's a good player.
Yeah, this is something that's, from a Spurs perspective, you could have seen coming for a long time. This sort of left-sided center back, left back hybrid, almost like a Tio Hernandez for Milan type of ordeal, where he has license to go forward no matter where he's at on the pitch, and
David
obviously some,
Alaba-esque for Real
yeah,
Madrid too.
and so obviously someone will rotate and sort of fill in.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, so he's allowed to underlap and wind up at like the edge of the 18-yard back centrally. It's so crazy and so much fun. But like I was gonna say, you saw a lot of this under Conte last year. He was one of our best players, I would say, last season. He's just his football IQ is very good. He knows when to go forward. He knows when not to go forward. And he's a great passer of the ball. If he had more pace, he'd be challenging Van de Ven for the starting role. But unfortunately, he does not have that pace.
Yeah.
There's really not.
Are you comfortable with him back there?
Not no, but it's not his fault. The only reason I'm not
Okay.
comfortable with him back there is because Romero's his partner. With Van de Ven, you knew that the recovery pace was there, and so you're not going to have to foul and pick up a yellow card, whereas Ben Davies would have to. And so when you have that risk along with Romero just being a permanent flight risk, like forever, that's the only reason why I'm not.
So if you had license over transfers for Tottenham and you were to go
Yeah.
to right center back, you would go look for someone with pace so that when you match up, so you have a direct replacement for Romero that can play with Ben Davies and with Van de Ven, and then when Van de Ven's in, you can kind of play either, and then when Davies comes in, you can kind of slot in that RCB with a little bit more pace. Is that my understanding of the situation?
Yeah, for sure. I don't think Romero's the best partner for Davies. So you did get it right. Which is not any disrespect on Romero. He just
No, he's
needs
a
to reel it.
fantastic center back.
Yeah, he's one of the best in the league, and I should have grabbed it, but there's a statistically at least one measure he's been the best in the league this season.
I think he's been really good this season.
Yeah,
I think he's been really good. And someone you guys have been linked with recently is Todibo, who you mentioned a little bit earlier.
yeah,
Um, have you done any ex-Barcelona guy? Have you done any research on him? Or no,
yeah.
not really.
No, I obviously know about him, and I think he's a great physical, dynamic center back. They're not very optimistic that we could bring him in. Um,
I know he's
I
linked
don't
with
know.
United as well.
Yeah, and it's tricky because you obviously want to start Romero and Van de Ven. So like bringing in someone like Todibo or Tapsoba, it's like these guys are gonna want to start. So
And they're good enough to. That's the thing.
yeah, so it's very tricky. But I also trust Postecoglou to like potentially find a way to start three center backs. Maybe. Um,
Yeah,
if you have
especially with
someone like
Pedro
that,
Porro being able to
yeah,
go up the right,
yeah. So
And Tapsoba does play a left LCB for Leverkusen. Not yeah, Tapsoba, who's someone that you guys were linked with before,
yeah,
um, over summer. So if that was like the plan, that's someone that you could bring in that has a lot of pace and could partner Romero as well, and you'd feel pretty comfortable.
yeah.
Um, moving on to Chelsea Wolves. Wolves beat Chelsea 2-1 at home. I know we're not really surprised, but Nkunku gets the goal, and he's got to be pretty upset moving from flying high Leipzig, where he was the top scorer in the Bundesliga, to this shambolic Chelsea squad.
I mean, absolutely. He hasn't had enough time to make an impact. To be fair, on like the squad as a whole.
They'd be better if he's been around all year than what they are.
Yeah,
But they still
and they
dropped points to Wolves with him. But he didn't start either. He came
he
off
did
the
not
bench.
start, and they're also missing Enzo, which love him or hate him, he's like the only one that's gonna make them somewhat competent in possession.
I was going to say progressive is a good word, too.
Yeah, so I'm just saying this last bullet point. Do we actually know what Potts is trying to accomplish? No, we do. We do not know right now.
That midfield
Wolves
was
are
hard to watch, man.
and
I
Wolves
watched
under
the game.
Gary
That was
O'Neill.
difficult, bro. God.
Yeah, it's so messy, and this was our takeaway or my takeaway from the Chelsea United match a few weeks ago. Both of these teams are so sloppy in possession. You know, Uh, it's not a fun watch certainly, but I'm
Well,
obviously
and Podge is better than this, man. Like,
absolutely
you have class there too, bro. Like Enzo should be class. Like Caicedo should be there to sweep everything up. Like and then you can kind of put like a 10 in front of them and feel pretty comfortable that you're going to have the progression and the defensive stability in balance. And like if you wanted to put a Cole Palmer there, or if you wanted to put an Nkunku there, or because he talks about going to a 4-2-3-1, but I don't think he can play a back four with the squad he has right now. I think that's
No,
part of the issue too.
yeah, he cannot. There's injuries there, obviously. You know, they've had to resort to play Mark Cucurella as a right back, with Reece James and Malo Gusto out at some points. But this is the problem with so many young players, is that the consistency won't be there. And when you're relying on a 20-year-old like Cole Palmer, or how old is Mudryk? 2021.
21, something like that, yeah.
It's like the Garnacho point. You're putting so much pressure on these guys.
And
And
Nico
while they're
Jackson too.
Yeah, and while they're great players, which I
And
can say,
probably are going to be better. You
mm-hmm,
paid for potential.
the only seasoned guy there is Thiago Silva at this point.
Well, and
Literally.
Nkunku too.
And Kunku too, but he hasn't been there yet.
Yeah.
He's gonna change things.
That's bad. That's
I know
bad that you have
it's
two
really bad.
seasons guys and you're Chelsea, and you want to be competing for titles, and even on top of it, you actually have a title coming up in the Carabao Cup, and you don't really have, if you end up playing Liverpool in that final, you're probably going to get your ass kicked.
I would think so, because that's when you need to rely on guys like they used to have, like Azpilicueta, or I'm blanking, Marcos Alonso. Those types of
Rudiger.
guys. Yeah, those types of guys would pop up and provide a sense of security. Rudiger would score like a nasty 30-yarder
Better.
every now and again.
Yeah, even better.
Yeah, so
They just have no bite in them either.
none.
When Rudiger left, they kind of lost that bite, unfortunately, and that's something
Yeah,
that they could actually use right now that they don't really have.
yeah.
But are we
And
really surprised that they drop points to Wolves? Because I'm not
no,
at all, and
because I
that's
think
bad.
it is bad, but I also think this is a good place to sort of give credit to Wolves, because they have been pretty good under Gary O'Neill.
They've been actually a lot better than you and I thought they'd be.
Yeah, and Nelson Semedo, he has a few moments in these games where he
He's
just
good,
absolutely
man.
destroys a Chelsea
He was
player.
good. He was good at Barcelona too.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't
They have
fantastic, but he was good.
they have a really interesting team, and Gary O'Neill was a good coach. He didn't get
Just
sacked from
changed
Bournemouth because he was bad. Bournemouth were just like, we need to be ruthless in this situation and get rid of you because we have a better coach. But Gary O'Neill's a good coach.
Yeah.
He is. So all credit to Wolves as well. But Chelsea shouldn't be losing the game.
No. And then Villa dropped points at home.
They
And
did.
they actually, yeah, to Sheffield United of all teams. It was kind of weird seeing such. Honestly, I think they probably had their goggles, their blinders on. They were probably focused on something else. Honestly, I think they were pretty focused on their last results. I don't think they were looking to the future. I think they were looking to the past. I mean, like, look at all these teams that we beat here.
Yeah.
Sheffield United is going to be a walk in the park, and then they struggle, and it takes a Zaniolo header in 90+7 to even snatch a point.
Yeah. And that's when you're going to compete in the Prem for a title with teams like Arsenal, Liverpool, and City, this is unacceptable, because
Even
you know
compete for top four. That's what
yeah,
the kicker
it's
was for
true.
me. It's like you can't lose to Sheffield, or you can't tie Sheffield at home and expect to make top four in any league. That goes for any league in the world.
Yeah,
And whether essentially you can't tie a relegation side at home. Bottom line, any league.
it's so true. And isn't it kind of funny how like the narrative sort of shifts almost already about this
Well,
Via team?
it's always, what have you done for me lately?
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a knock on them, but I just kind of think we've seen their ceiling and their floor within like a week span. You know what I mean? Or 2 weeks, really a 3 week span, because they didn't really look that good against Brentford either. But they were
Mm-mm.
away from home, and we know that they struggle away from home.
Yeah.
But that's all I wanted to touch on the Villa game. And then Fulham dropped points to Burnley. Relegation side's picking up points. What's up with that?
It's that time of the year where there are some injuries have built up and players are tired. Also,
Tired.
Fulham's a very streaky team. Like obviously, we know what happened today, which we'll get into in the next ep. But no, Burnley can punish teams like these that are weak in defense. 2 goals from 0.37 xG total. It is unlucky, and Craven Cottage is not a fortress, so like for Burnley to be away from home, I don't think it's a huge deal.
Yeah, but you got to pick up points at home, man. That you always got to pick up at least 8 points to stay in the league. You need to get points at home,
For sure, you're right. But yeah,
and especially the relegation sides. Like, and
yeah,
we were talking about Everton kind of like separating themselves from the bottom. I don't know if you check the standings. They're only a point. They're only a point out of the relegation zone right now.
they are only a
So
point.
they do have a game in hand, but it's against Man City. So like because Luton picked up points today. But just touching on other things, Crystal Palace and Brighton tie 1-1. Any thoughts on that one?
No, other than Elise starting to hit his stride again, which I don't know if the City transfer rumors preseason, played into his mind. I know he had some injury problems, but it's always good to see Elise in great form because he's the heir to Zaha's throne there in Crystal Palace. And Brighton, this is just a typical Brighton result.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right on par.
yeah,
And Bournemouth, Solanka scores a late winner to take all 3 points away from home against Forest.
yeah.
So
Dominic
good on them.
Solanke's in great form, which we'll also discuss in the next episode.
That's what a couple wins in a row for Bournemouth. And then the real devastating result of the weekend was Luton beating Newcastle 1-0.
Yeah,
Newcastle's
yeah,
going to be a mid-table team by the end of the year, man.
they are. It stinks because they are dealing with injuries. This isn't a result of bad form necessarily or tactical mistakes. They seem very tired, and we'll also get into this in the next episode. But Luton are a team that is sort of finally finding their feet in the Prem. And Andros Townsend, this is something that Chelsea lacks. A seasoned guy like Andros Townsend, who's been around since I was even a young child.
Don't they have Barkley too?
They do have Ross Barkley too,
Who's a
and
dickhead, but
yeah,
whatever. He's been there,
he's been there, and it's something Newcastle lack. To go into an environment like Luton, you need a seasoned veteran, and I know they have a few, but
It's
a
a tough
few of those
stadium to
guys
go
are
to too, though.
yeah.
I forget what's it called, like Old Town Road or something like that, or I forget.
I forget because
It's a
they're
very
moving
specific name.
Kenilworth Road.
See, I knew it was something road. There we go.
They're
It's a tough stadium to go to, man.
yeah,
They had complaints where they weren't even allowed to start the season at home because they needed to get the field up to Premier League level.
right.
And
Which just a Luton Town Stadium talk. They're sort of letting Kenilworth Road run down a little bit because they're moving to Power Court, which if anyone wants to take a look at the renderings, looks pretty cool actually. There's like lots of gaps in the upper portion of the stadium bowl, and it looks kind of cool.
I'm kind of sad that you just said that. I hate when teams leave their stadiums. Like I understand it is necessary for growth as a club, but I'd
Yeah,
rather just see teams renovate instead of building new.
sure. Yeah,
Like I really wish Atleti would have stayed at the Calderon. I thought that was a great environment. And though they have a great environment at the Metropolitano, but it's not home. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
eventually it becomes home, but it's not the same. Same at White Hart Lane. I really that was part of the reason I liked Tottenham when I first started following.
yeah,
I like Pochettino. I like Kane. I like Son, but like I really like the environment. I like the stadium. Those old time stadiums are really cool, man. But hopefully they don't tear it down and they keep it for something else. And just kind of maybe have like the country renovated. I mean, and I don't know where Luton Town is located.
Oh,
But
I
I'm
looked
sure
it
they
up.
have. I'm sure they have other clubs there that could actually probably use an upgrade to that stadium.
Yeah,
And it's a really cool stadium. Like there's houses connected to it on the outside and stuff. Like I mean, it's real old school, man.
it
It's
is.
probably the coolest stadium in the Prem, to be quite honest. I mean,
That's a
people's
great.
backyard is literally the stadium.
Yeah, it's Luton is like on the outskirts north of London.
Wow. They have to have someone close to there, um,
Absolutely.
like that could use the stadium. Like, dude, it's so cool, man. It's so cool that they literally have like you're literally walking through people's like kitchens to get to the stadium, bro. It's
Yeah,
so cool.
it is pretty cool.
It's a nice stadium, man. Like they just don't build them like that anymore, if you know what I mean.
Definitely not.
But moving on, um, Serie A talk. Roma beat Napoli 2-0 as Napoli's form continues to be inconsistent. Um, but Big Rom gets a goal and finds himself in great form. 8 goals, 1 assist in Serie A, and 5 goals and 1 assist in Europa League. Is Mourinho like just the striker whisperer or something? Because this guy just Tammy Abraham has his best year. Lukaku has a great year at Man United under him, and then has another good year at Roma.
Yeah, no, I Mourinho does have a way of galvanizing strikers. Obviously, you think way back to Drogba as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Higuain played really good under him.
yeah, so he likes those bigger physical strikers.
Yeah,
The two
Benzema's a
red
cat.
cards. The one is crazy. I forget which player it was, but I didn't think it was a red necessarily. Um,
Um, Politano. I thought it was crazy.
yeah,
It
it was
was
pretty.
crazy. That wasn't even a yellow in my opinion.
Yeah, it was pretty weak.
And it cost him the game, worst of all, because it was still 0-0 at that point. Not that, as we see from the advanced metrics, XG was 1.9 to 7. So,
Yeah,
fair result. But, I want to know how much of the XG was before the red card, because
exactly.
it was probably a pretty fair game at that point. And Mourinho, I don't know if you saw, but Mourinho and Kvaratskhelia got into it at one point. Did you see
Mm-hmm.
that video? Yeah, it was
Yeah,
pretty interesting. I would actually love to see Kvaratskhelia under a Jose Mourinho. I think that would do that kid wonders.
yeah. Well, the one thing I wanted to say is that Mourinho is as close to a player as possible without being a player. Like that's just what he does best. Getting in the heads of stars like Kvaratskhelia. He also clashed with Osimhen, I'm pretty sure.
Who
Um,
picks up a red card, and now him and Politano are both suspended.
yeah,
That
that's big
Napoli
for
front
them.
line's pretty deep, though. Not to say that uh, they're Osimhen level, but or Politano level, but having Simeone there, having Raspadori there, they properly backed the squad, knowing that Osimhen would not be there for the future.
Right.
So good
Yeah,
on
that's
them.
true.
Um, Bologna beat Atalanta 1-0, and it seems to be on the back of Zirkzee, who's probably been the best striker other than Osimhen in Serie A.
Yeah. No, you pointed it out to me the other day, and I took a look, and he has had a great season. He's the reason they knocked out Inter in Coppa Italia with the 2 assists.
Yep.
And no, this is a good result. Bologna are for real. Like, obviously we talked about this, but
Diego
they're one of
Motta is the coach too, which who would have
yeah,
known that?
that's really cool. You love to see another center defensive mid coach rise up
Always.
the yeah.
It's just
Um,
a thing at this point.
it really is, and
It's because they see the game, they see the game for what it is.
but it's also not to broaden our scope more than just this match, but something like
Broaden it.
Bologna for a former player as a coach is better than Lampard stepping into Chelsea, Steven Gerrard stepping into Villa. Like this is a space to watch for someone like Thiago Motta. If
On par with Alonso going to Leverkusen. Like
yeah,
it's like it's a good level to be at where the pressure's high, but it's not like you're going to get ran out of town if you fail
Yeah, and
because of
now
your name.
exactly, and now Lampard is his manager. He
He'll never
committed
coach again.
managerial suicide by doing that interim role with Chelsea.
Yeah.
But yeah, Bologna is for
And
real.
Gerrard has essentially committed managerial suicide too. He's in Saudi right now.
True.
So
Yeah,
he might be making a lot of money doing that. So good for him. But yeah. And we probably should mention, I know this is a little off topic, but Nuno took over the Nottingham Forest role after being fired from Al Ittihad. Kind of, to me, weird. But
it was weird.
if it works for them, it works because he's not a very good manager. I don't know if you heard, but he tried to bench Karim Benzema in Saudi because he said he preferred the other strikers' qualities of the Al Ittihad team. So imagine not wanting a Ballon d'Or winner of 2 years ago in your team.
Yeah, no,
I know it's off topic, but back to Bologna, just
yeah,
fantastic for him. And I'm happy for them. And Thiago Motta, like many young managers that are taking up sides, like Ariola for Bournemouth and Robbie with Leverkusen. You know, find your level, start low, find your level. If you're worth going higher, you will be hired higher. Like Ariola did it at Rayo Vallecano first. And let's say you fall in love with, let's say Thiago Motta loves being at Bologna and he can build something there. No one, you'll become a club legend, bro, if you just stay.
yeah,
Same with Xabi Alonso. They were in the relegation zone and then they fought up for Europa League. And I hate to say it, and I don't want to jinx it, but I personally think that they're staring down the barrel of a treble for Leverkusen. And
yeah,
they get past Stuttgart. It's looking really good for the DFB. It's already looking really good in the league. And the Europa League is, in my opinion, it's right now it's them or Liverpool. So you know as a lot of people say, water always finds its level. So if you keep pushing high, you'll keep getting picked up. And Thiago Motta one day will be managing a big side. To me, he's someone that Juventus should really look at post Allegri. Because I think he's someone that he's going to understand Serie A and it's going to be a good fit for him. I know Conte is kind of eyeing up that Juventus job, but right now, I think if I was Juventus, I think I'd rather have a Thiago Motta, someone that could build something, than a Conte who's just going to come in, tear down, build up, and then tear back down.
yeah.
And
This
he's the
is
one that deserves him and Zirkzee deserve all the flowers for the Bologna stuff. And not to mention they beat Atalanta, man. It's not like they just beat a scrub side. Like I sent you that tweet. I don't remember what it was, but they picked up a lot of points since he's taken over.
yeah.
It's
I
like
mean,
last 18 games or something they haven't lost, or something like that.
right? They only have 2 losses on the season, and they're
Yeah.
sitting in 4th place right now. They're not. They're 13 points behind Inter in first. So, they're not going to challenge for the title, but Bologna managing UCL or Super League, whatever it turns out to be, that's a great thing for them. They're 5 matches unbeaten right now, and their last 3 include a good win over Atalanta, Inter win, and Roma win. Only conceding 1 goal throughout those 3 matches. They're a great side, and it's one for football hipsters to get excited about. I guess they're sort of like a Brighton of Serie A right now.
Yeah, and I'm trying to find that tweet I sent you about Thiago Motta. I can't seem to find it, which
And
is
it's
weird.
it's
But
also really nice to see like a guy like Zirkzee
found it.
who's been around for a long time. He
They only
was
have one loss in their last 18. There you go.
there. You go. That's
Beating
great.
AC Roma, Inter, and Atalanta in the space of 1 week.
Yes,
That's
sir.
pretty impressive.
It is, and like I was saying, it's cool to see a guy like Zirkzee start to really find his feet and turn into a mature footballer. Obviously, he was at Bayern for a long time as a youngster. Never really worked out for him. But now
Always been a
seven
good
goals.
player, though.
Yeah, 7 goals and 2 assists and 17 in the Serie A. That's great.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Inter stay top and win 2-0 after being eliminated in the Coppa Italia, and Milan drop points to bottom of the table. They might not be bottom of the table anymore, but Salentina, is that how you say it? I always say it wrong. I'm gonna get it one day.
Salernitana.
Salernitana, thank you.
Yeah.
2-2, and it's kind of weird seeing the two Inter sides that were fighting it out for so long now find themselves kind of opposite. And it's not like this Milan team's been bad, but 10-2-4, they're 9 points back of Inter. They've pretty much been knocked out of every competition. They fell into Europa League by the skin of their pants, bro.
Yeah.
Because they beat Newcastle. That was it.
Yeah. No,
If
it's
they would have tied Newcastle, they would have been out. So, and they upgraded their squad though. I thought they got better from last year.
yeah.
Like with Samu Chukwueze, they added Christian Pulisic. They added guys that can at least raise their level
Right.
consistently.
And I would say even more importantly, they held on to guys like Tamori and Rafael Leao, who are always under threat from being poached by
Well,
bigger
and
clubs.
Giroud's having a good year too. Like it's not like
Yeah.
Giroud's been bad. They got Mike Magnan in net, who's still amazing, the French number one. So it's kind of weird. And when you read all the stats, they're 10-4. They're really not doing that bad, but
No, they're not. But you did expect them
they're
to be.
not you expect them to be competing, and they're not
Right.
competing. And that's kind of the issue, right?
And it's also worth mentioning Salernitano did go down to 10 men towards the very back end of the game, but it also took Milan till the 90th minute to score an equalizer to even come
Yeah.
away with a point.
I forgot Luka Jovic is the backup striker. He scored the freaking equalizer.
Yeah. There you go. You probably have nightmares.
He doesn't really bother me that much, but in other Italian results, Lazio beats Empoli 2-0. Genoa beats Sassuolo 2-1. That's kind of surprising for me. Fiorentina beat Monza 1-0. All of the winners away from home up to this date. Juve beat Frosinone 2-1, which is Frosinone is pretty good at home. And Udinese gets another draw 1-1. And
Yeah.
Verona beats Cagliari 2-0.
We
In other
talk.
news, though, did you see Hercules knocked out Ajax in the Copa? I don't even know what it's called.
Yeah.
Whatever they call the Ajax Cup, not
Yeah,
the
I did.
Ajax Cup, the Dutch Cup.
Ajax Cup. Yeah, I did see it. And Ajax even tied the game up at one point after they went down 2-0, I believe.
Yup,
So that's
quick.
awesome.
They tied it up quick. It was like an 85th and 89th or something like that.
Yeah.
They call it the
That's awesome.
KNVB Cup. There you go.
Might as well be the Ajax Cup.
That's
No,
super disrespectful. I'm sure they've won it the most though.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. You love to see cup sets like that.
Fourth division, bro. That's actually. I mean, Ajax just continue to fail left and right. Ajax have the most titles with 20. Yeah, there you go. This Ajax team just continue to fail left and right.
They do.
It's pretty sad, and I'm not really sure where they go from here. But we're coming towards the end of 2023. I wanted to get. Okay, so do you want to do this for the whole calendar year of 2023, or do you want to do this for just the halfway point of the season of 2023?
I would say halfway point, just
That's
because
completely fair.
my
Yeah,
brain's
me
been
too.
overloaded.
Yep. So just a couple quick questions here. Maybe I can share the screen so the people can see what we're talking about.
Sure.
So best player for 2023 in your opinion, most underrated player in 2023, the most improved player in 2023, the best signing, the best goal, the best match, and your favorite moment from 2023.
Well, best player, you automatically kind of start to think to Leverkusen just because they have been the best team so far this season.
That's a
So
good one.
guys like Frimpong or Verts pop up. I'll go with Frimpong just because what he's doing is sort of unprecedented. You
That's
talk
awesome.
about attacking wingbacks like Trent over the last few years, but I just want to go with Frimpong. This is a guy you've been
That's
talking
awesome.
about for a long time.
Oh, that's my guy, bro. That's
Yeah,
my guy. Um, for me, the best player, obviously, I have to be biased here. It's got to be Jude Bellingham, right?
that's a good
I
one.
mean,
That's a good one.
I mean, the dude is Ballon d'Or favorite right now. You'd have to say. Um,
Yeah,
I don't really think I need to explain it actually any more than that. And so moving on, who's been the most underrated player in 2023? I know who my mind's thinking about.
this is a great question. For what Aston Villa has done, I would go with Douglas Luiz. His ability just to carry
Dude,
and progress the ball.
he was actually in my head. That's crazy.
Yeah,
Um,
no, he's
he's been
great.
fantastic. He's been
Yeah.
fantastic. Um, but actually, I'm gonna go with someone who really doesn't get a lot of he's not really getting a lot of flowers from a lot of people, and he's been one of the best players in La Liga this season. And I'm gonna go with Miguel Gutierrez of Girona. I think he's
Mm,
been a massive reason for why they've been so successful this year. And I there's a couple Girona players I could have went with. I was thinking of Alex Garcia. I was thinking of
yeah.
Drobniak, the striker. Savinho. But I wanted to get when looking at this list, you feel like you have to get some players in from the best team. Another player I was thinking of was James Madison.
Yeah.
Because he hasn't really been talked about much this year, but he's been quite good.
Yeah.
Um, moving on, who's been your most improved player this season?
Most improved. That's an interesting one. Uh, I don't know. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I can. This has been this has actually been a tough one for me. But I think I'm gonna go with the person that we were just talking about, and I think I'm gonna go with Zirkzee.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a good one.
someone that he was on everybody's radar, but he kind of fell off our radars in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And he's someone that's kind of come out flying this year and probably needed the backing of a manager like Diego Mota to finally get him going.
Yeah. Uh, well, coming back to mine, I I figured it out. It's Hakan Calhanoglu. Um,
That's such a good one, bro.
yeah.
God, you got me there, man. The
I,
thing is, I'm not even. You want to type his name because I don't want to try to
yeah.
spell
I
that.
got you.
I
I
know how
was,
to spell it, but I'm gonna mess it up either way. Um, Dude, and the way that they moved him from a 10 to a 6 this year, I mean,
yeah.
it's Pirlo-esque. Uh, I say it all the time, like a lot of the top midfielders, like when they kind of get older and they become more smart and they become more smart and they become smarter,
Yeah.
they
Wiser.
they get dropped deeper when they become more intelligent, when the IQ is well rounded. And he's the epitome of that. He's a guy who's been a 10 his whole career. And who's the Inter manager now? I don't even know. Um, he's like, hey, play the 6 this year, and he's been fantastic. I think you win that category easily. Um,
Appreciate that.
yeah. So best signing. There wasn't really that many signings this summer. It was kind of a smaller transfer window. Um, but who would you say was the best signing in the world this year? It's tough. Um, there's one that kind of sticks out here, but I'm not gonna say that one.
Well, I could obviously piggyback off of you saying Jude Bellingham.
That's
Um,
what my mind was at, obviously.
but I will say James Madison just to add on to have some
He
diversity.
deserves to be on this list at some point.
Yes.
He's been fantastic.
Before he got injured, he was probably the best player in the Premier League.
I'd agree
I
with that.
would say. I would say. Um, just an all-around baller. He was integral to our build-up, linking defensive midfield and then midfield and attack, popping up with goals, and he's wearing Kane's number 10 right away and doing it justice. So, yeah,
And he allowed Son to get further up pitch, which
yes,
is the big thing. So for me, I'm going with a free transfer. He actually leads the best team in the world in goals and assists this year. I'm going with Grimaldo.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Been slotting in at left back, left wing back, essentially, left mid, whatever you want to call him. And he actually inverts. He does the opposite of what Frimpong does. Frimpong's a drive the baseline, hit a cutback. Rimaldo's kind of operating in that half space, in
Yeah.
zone 14, left of zone 14, and he's been quite fantastic this season. Him and Frimpong, if either of them go down, it's hard to see Leverkusen keeping their potential this year. And also, I don't know if you know, but I didn't realize this until I actually looked at the squad. That game before international break, not international break, before Christmas break, Xabi Alonso rotated all of his Afghan players out of the lineup.
Mm,
So
smart.
he was working with the guys that so no Boniface, so that's why Patrick Schick started. I want to say it was Stansnick came in for Kus, you know what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
Koussone. I don't know how to say his last name. I'm sure it's
Yeah.
French. But yeah, so he took out all of his AFCON players and rotated some guys in. This one's going to be a little bit more difficult because you got to rack the brain for this one.
Yeah.
Best goal of the season.
I was thinking about it as soon as I saw it. It's got to be Garnacho's bike, right?
I mean, you can go with that, yeah. I
That's what
mean,
I think.
probably. I mean, that was one of the best goals of the year for sure.
Yeah.
Um, I'm gonna go with something a little bit different. I'm gonna go with a big goal, plus a good goal. Jude's 30-yard
Mm,
smash against Barcelona.
yeah.
Just because I think the moment, the hit, all of it has
Yeah.
just been, it just all led up to a fantastic moment. Your best match of the year.
Mm, I'm gonna go with. Please forgive me because I need to figure out which one it was. Spurs have had so many late comebacks over the
Yeah,
years,
yeah.
but it was
I mean,
the
and this is
latest
obviously personal preference. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it was
Um,
the latest comeback in Premier League history, and it was not Crystal Palace.
I got a couple in my head. I gotta look at
Tottenham,
though.
Tottenham, Liverpool is
Tottenham,
what it
Liverpool,
was. 2-1.
2-1. Okay,
Yeah,
that's a good shot. I remember that one.
obviously lots of controversy as well.
Yes,
I was
yes.
I was very hype. For the YouTube version, I might even put a video of me after the game. Um, it was pretty crazy.
That's great, man. Obviously my bias comes in here. Um, but do I want to say Real Madrid match or do I want to say? I gotta go. I gotta go with Real Madrid via Real for me. Just because I really, really enjoyed the thrashing of them. Um, it was just a complete domination. It was probably the best performance I'd seen from Real Madrid this year.
Yeah,
It was just all around uh, fantastic for me. Obviously, is it actually the best match of the season? Fuck no.
yeah.
Leverkusen smashing Stuttgart is up there too. What's been your favorite moment up to this point?
Favorite moment. A few pop up. I want to say United getting knocked out of the UCL.
Oh man.
Just as like
Um, that's
as a
fair. I mean,
as a Spurs fan, someone who has to sort of look to things outside of ourselves sometimes for some joy. That is one of them.
I don't blame you. And actually for me, my favorite moment has essentially been just Xabi Alonso experience at Leverkusen, man.
Yeah,
Um, I've just been so happy to see it. I watched most of their games. And from a guy that I've actually met in person, a guy that I grew up not idolizing, but kind of idolizing his game.
yeah,
It's been amazing. When I met him, I was like, "Come, coach Real Madrid, come on." And he was like, it was just after we won the Champions League, and he was like, no, 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 not yet, not yet. I was like, in the future, and he's like, in the future, if I get
Yeah.
asked by Florentino. I was like, damn, like, just he's just one of my favorites, man. And like that moment, obviously, like put him even higher on my list because he was such a genuine nice guy. But
Yeah.
just watching him succeed at Leverkusen this year and last year, has just been it's kind of been the pinnacle for me. Of
Respect.
football this season. That and like the Jude Bellingham, just the whole Jude Bellingham thing. But I
Yeah.
got Jude in here twice. Um, so as you can see, I'm very La Liga going. But I have the Serie A here. I have the
Yeah.
Bundesliga here. I got the Bundesliga here. So um, and I like this list we've actually compiled. I think it's with our biases, but it's also quite fair. And each and every single person has actually deserving. When you said the Leverkusen team, I was thinking, I was like, is he going to go Vert? Is he going to go Grimaldo? Is he going to go Boniface? Because there's so many guys you can actually go on that team.
Yeah.
And just been amazing. If you want, we can continue adding to this list. We can go best forward, best midfielder, best defender, or we can just say we're very happy with this.
Yeah. No, it's a good list. I'm leaning a bit on Prem, but yeah, I was mad you stole Zirkzee from me, but
I'm
it's
so
fine.
sorry.
It's fine.
I'm so sorry. Is that the one where you made me go first? I think that's the one you
Uh,
made me go first. So
yeah, it was. It was.
is that where you were leaning?
I was, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to say someone that we had just talked about. You know.
Oh, okay, that's fair.
Anyways,
I think it's fair to give players their flowers. They
for
deserve
sure.
it.
For sure.
But thank you all for listening. And this is the Football Philosophy Podcast. Go listen to us on wherever you listen to podcasts. And we also post these on YouTube if you want to see our faces. Even though I don't know if you checked the Spotify ones, but it actually does have our video on the Spotify ones too.
Yeah, it's pretty
You
cool.
can either watch it with video or without video, totally your call. And share with some friends that like football, and everyone enjoy your holidays, enjoy your new year. We'll be back after Boxing Day. I think we'll do a podcast Friday, Friday morning or Thursday night after the Boxing Day events. I know it goes on for a couple days. Finish, and then we'll be back after the weekend, and then La Liga picks up again January 3rd. It seems far away, but it's really right there.
Yeah.
And then the League and Bundesliga pick up on January 12th. Thank you all for listening, and you guys all have a wonderful holiday. Thanks, Kev. It's always great.
It was a pleasure.